Gunjan. So, hi, my name is Shyamala Prayaga, and I am the product manager slash owner for Ford Motor Company, and I lead the conversational AI digital assistant efforts at Ford Motor. And that's about me. I have been in the conversational AI world for almost 8 years now. Was also part of the Amazon Echo Gen 1 and Gen 2 launch. So, have seen the evolution of conversational AI for a pretty long time. So I would like to introduce our panelist. So Jayesh, over to you.
Thank you, Shyamala. Hi, guys. My name is Jayesh. I lead the AI and machine learning efforts at Salesforce, specifically focused on Einstein for CRM, which is a suite of AI and machine learning products and services that enable automation and assistive intelligence for service agents and sales agents. That's a little bit about me. I'm going to hand the mic over to Sylvain.
Thank you, Jayesh. Hi, my name is Sylvain. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Botpress. Botpress is a conversational AI platform for developers with a specific target for enterprises, and which is our way of monetizing. We help enterprises leverage conversational AI at large scale. And we have many customers in the retail space. That's my presence here. So I'll leave the microphone to Jean-Leah.
So thank you, Sylvain. So my name is Jean-Leah, and I'm a director of conversational AI at Lowe. And with that, I lead a team of just machine learning and data scientists to enable the element of conversational AI, or what I like to call the chatter, the customer chatter, right? So just capturing that voice of the customer and being able to use technology as well as natural language processing approaches to create a better customer experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Shyamala.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So welcome, panelists. It's a pleasure talking with you today. I'm really excited for this session. So my question to all of you, this is a very generic one, is what are the main use cases of conversational AI for customers that you're seeing, especially in the customer experience world, in the retail world?
So maybe I can go first. Some of the use cases that we try to look at is looking at the customer from the omni-channel perspective, right? And trying to extract the textual aspect of the speech aspect using some natural language processing in order to understand what is the customer really talking about our product. So what is the customer saying about the services they're getting, or what is the customer, feedback we're getting from the customer. So really just, collecting that information and then using, machine learning and natural language processing to be able to deliver that seamless customer experience.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak from the point of view of the solution provider, but what we see is the very obvious ones, which is customer support automation, is the number one use case, of course, because essentially I've never met someone that really likes talking to customer service reps over the phone, right? So that's the number one and very obvious use case. The number two is really self-service and customer enablement. So allowing customers to actually, do things on their own instead of having to search for the information, download an application, or having to use a complex, potentially complex mobile application, right? Now that's true of all industries. It's not very specific to retail, but what I found was unique to retail for many type of businesses in the retail industry is that there's a lot of seasonality in the demand for customer service reps, right? So this is not necessarily from a customer perspective, but from a business perspective, especially for the clothing industry at holiday season, you have a huge peak of demand for customer service reps. And so what happens is instead of having like 100 reps all time, you end up in a position where you have to ramp up those support agents by a considerable amount of time. And then you have to fire those agents and rehire them on a recurring basis. So that's a huge problem, and we've seen that with COVID happen at the global scale across all industries. But this is the reality of retail businesses.
Yeah, to double down on that, but probably get a little more specific on the retail front, I'd say the vast majority of the use cases that we see in retail kind of fall under customers trying to learn about product specs or the services that are being offered, more informational in nature. And once they've sort of purchased a product, the second set of use cases are, trying to find the status of the order, trying to return an item. The third sort of big bucket of sort of use cases we see in retail are sort of diagnostics of issues related to products you might have bought, disputing charges. So probably 4 or 5 big pillars: trying to learn about product services, getting status on items or returning an item, diagnosing an issue, and probably talking about billing and charges and stuff like that. So 4 big pillars sort of emerge, at least if you double click on retail within the enterprise. Of course, we have the common use cases that Sylvain talked about, which cut across all industries. But specific to retail, I'd say these are 4 big pillars.
That sounds interesting. So that brings me to the next question, which is like, Sylvain, you mentioned, there's people wanting to talk to customer care and, some glitches and things like that. But again, talking to an AI at the same time, people have their own reservations. So what is your, what have you seen in terms of the user sentiments or user expectation when it comes to talking to an AI versus talking to a real human for these kind of use cases?
Yeah, I think we've all been victims of, like the high user expectations for conversational AI, right? Like, so especially solution providers promising that, we have reached human level. This is simply not the case. But I think in most cases, what we found is that we can generally automate anywhere between 20 to 50% of users' requests, right? So as long as it's done well, I think there's tremendous value right now in 2021. And this will be even the case even more. But I expect by 2024, 99% of all customer interactions will be able to be automated by the technology. And so, as long as it's done well, I think customers will be happy. But you do need to manage expectations. And I think one of the first area that of error that I see is that people are trying to do everything at once and not splitting the problems effectively. So you have the analog channel, right, which is phone and synchronous, and you have the text-based channels. And I think trying to do voice plus the text all at the same time is very prone to error. What we found out is that millennials really enjoy chatting, right? That's their new expectations because it's asynchronous. And something that works is just opening up a chat, on your website. This is the very first thing that every company should be doing is, do you have a live chat? And start transforming your analog conversations to digital. And then once you have a chat and you could capture a significant percentage of interactions over the digital channel, then try to automate the best, the most frequent ones, right? But often we see too much companies trying to do everything at the same time, which is an order of magnitude more difficult to do voice and automation all at the same time.
So, Jean-Leah, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So, what do you think, because you're working on a customer-facing product, which is interesting, but you're also talking about all these technological aspects as well, which comes with it. So, people don't understand some of these things. So, for example, natural language understanding is a big piece of the puzzle. And people can speak however they want, they don't understand. So do you see some sort of frustrations or when they're talking with these bots? Because when they are with a human will understand these things in the customer care world or the retail world, so it's pretty easy for them, right? But the moment we switch it into an AI world, AI is so much dependent on the data we provide or feed into them. So what do you think is the user expectation here, and what you have seen?
So personally, first, I like to look at, when I'm building products, I like to think of myself as a user. Like, what do I want, right? And even just extend that. What do my mom want, or my grandmother, right? The person that shops at Lowe's, I'm not gonna go talk to my mom and say, oh, I'm developing natural language processing, she'll be like, what's that, right? But to me, I think having to augment the human in the loop in being able to label that data. In this chatter world, that is very essential, right? We cannot remove the human in the loop aspect of it, because we are still learning how to label the data, right? And that labeling of the data is quite honestly like tribal knowledge within an organization, right? And so, I always argue sometimes that call it augmented intelligence, right? Because as much as we want to automate everything, I would love to automate myself out of my job, right? That's usually my number one goal. But we also have to be very cognizant that this element of textual data or voice data, there has to be an element of the human augmenting that, because essentially we are trying to mimic that dialogue system, right? We're trying to build that dialogue system that is going to answer my question in a very intuitive way, in such a way that I'm just, not impatient enough, or because I'm dealing with the impatient millennials. They want, information. I want to ask, I want to go to the market, and they're like, which market, or, so specific things, but those specific things will require that human in the loop, right? That active learning, because we can build these systems that derive conversations the way we want without having that element in the loop. So to me, I feel like we're still very early in those early stages on labeling that data, so that we can understand those systems. And usually, like I say sometimes, like in each and every household, you have your own dialect, right? You have some things that you talk in your household, your little language that nobody else can understand, right? So, I mean, and when I look at companies and products that we're building, I look at it from the same way, right? So that labeling data require that tribal knowledge, and that tribal knowledge is found within the organizations that will enable us to build those, effective conversational AI systems.
Thank you. So that brings me to the next question, Jayesh, and that is like when we are designing, of course, in the retail world, and like Sylvain mentioned, we need to create a bot which has some, human elements to it, so that people are able to interact with it the same way. And going to what Jean-Leah said, that, there are some aspects people will still expect some human intervention as well, but on the other end, the users understand that they are talking with AI. And there's been so much effort happening around where every company is trying to personalize their bots or humanize them to a certain extent, right? So what do you think are the most important archetypes when you're designing these such bots for the experiences? I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was. That's a really good question, and I'm going to take off from where sort of Jean-Leah left off. I think it's first. I completely agree that it's important from a use case perspective for bot builders to understand when customers actually prefer human interactions, and then design their bot interactions accordingly. Problems that are severe, problems that are complex and ambiguous to describe, even though the solutions might be simple. Problems that require a unique or personalized, specific to the user solution. I think those are classic sort of examples of when a bot should be really good at designing what I call human agent handoff scenarios. Specifically from the perspective of the kind of science we build, we call it out of domain or out of vocabulary identification. It's one of the cornerstones of building good human in the loop experiences is when a bot knows that it doesn't know, and then be able to hand off seamlessly to a human. And that's one of the big best practices and a very common archetype that cuts across bots in the enterprise. The other two things are these are more foundational in how we see customers approach bots. Bots are either transaction or task oriented, or they're informational. And turns out that the way one designs bots that are informational are entirely different than how one might do a task oriented bot. Because in the case of the informational bot, we're talking about complexities around managing knowledge and getting access to that knowledge, extracting the right information. It becomes an information retrieval problem and delivered in a conversational manner, versus the other big use case, which is task oriented, where you're really collecting a bunch of information seamlessly, understanding vocabulary, using NLU techniques to get to that, and then eventually making an API call either to return the status of an item or some such thing. So I'd say those are two big things. Going back to double click on what Jean-Leah and Sylvain said about human in the loops and just the two sort of archetypes, which are informational and task oriented.
That's a great point. And I think categorizing and based on that, designing the experience definitely does make sense, because, if you look at bots, they have different purposes, and knowing those purposes will definitely help for the users to have a better interaction and experience. So now let's switch some gears. And Sylvain, this question is for you. There are so many platforms available out there to create chatbots, and people have so many options to do that. What are your customers looking for when they are choosing a Botpress to create chatbots?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to place the platforms into two buckets, right? So you have the off-the-shelf solution or do it yourself kind of solutions, and these usually don't require much technical and development effort, but they're great for getting started, right? And getting to a point where you have a proof of concept, you can maybe unlock budget, you can prove that customers actually want to interact with an AI agent. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in there, and I think it's beneficial to have those kinds of platform, because to this day there's still people building websites with Wix as an example, right? And so you need to start with having a website before you actually go and learn React, right? And invest a lot on building a website. So what we found most customers coming to us are coming from is, hey, we've tested this, we created like a proof of concept, and now we're getting ready to do this at the professional level. So we need professional tooling, but we also need professional advice and hand holding into getting this to the next level and really increase the performance of those agents. So it's about performance, it's about setting a standard and having the best kind of management and operations within the company, but also being able to customize the agents in a way that represents your brand, right? Because brand is extremely important at that scale.
Thank you. So Jayesh, in your world, because you also have similar kind of platform, what kind of things have you seen, like customers expecting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one is very tight integration between bots and agents. I'm fortunate to work in Salesforce, and we have both sides, kind of covered with that. But customers expect, pretty good tight handoff between the two. The second big thing I'd say is in large implementations, especially, there's a certain craftsmanship that's involved in designing bot conversations. Some of it can be machine generated, but a lot of it is actually handcrafted in how dialogue trees are built, and what eventual function gets executed in the background. So I'd say, in addition to the craftsmanship element, the customers that we work with expect sort of a maintenance life cycle of a bot, if you will. And by that I mean, imagine that you're building a really large e-commerce website. It's a significant undertaking. It's not like you're going to a UI and just creating a simple web page, right? And bots are that's where we are in the continuum of bots. You got to think of it as an implementation cycle. You need to make sure that you have the right team, and the structure of the team looks kind of different. You need conversational designers that are able to write prose in a way that's understandable. Jean-Leah talked about this as well. Being able to talk in the customer's voice is absolutely important. Understanding that vocabulary, the slang, getting the bot a personality. This is one aspect, and the second aspect is very much engineering oriented, and science oriented. So are you able to quickly understand what the customer is talking about, send them down the right path? So these are sort of three big areas that we think hard about, especially to do with really large installations which are complex. And really the analogy I use over and over again is, think of it like you're trying to launch an e-commerce site, and that's kind of a big deal. That's your face to your customer. So all the tools that go with it, I guess.
Cool. So, Jean-Leah, when we spoke earlier, you spoke about the experiences and the use cases and all, right? And also touched briefly on the technological aspects as well. What do you think are the challenges when designing seamless customer experiences, especially, at that level of scale?
Talent. I think one of the key things, is technology moves fast. I think, the technology now it's totally different. And so, you have to have talent that's open-minded, that's, continuous learning, right? And I think the second thing is really change management as well, right? In organizations, you have to be able to also be not only a solution, a transformational solution provider, but also you have to be a change agent, right? You're balancing those two things because, whether we like it or not, there's still the element of, fear that, these data scientists are going to automate us out of our jobs, right? So it's those, I don't think, the technology or the approaches are quite difficult to really sift through. But I think it's things like talent, change management, like bringing everybody together and understanding the vision, right? And also because if we are moving slower, technology is not waiting for us, right? So by the time we figure out where we are, that technology has moved. So now we have to figure out how to get there, right? And also, right, understanding that to understand a customer and create a good experience, you have to build a seamless omni-channel, right? I don't want to be communicating on my phone as a different person, and I have to log into a different channel, and then I have to also do like a different login and all that stuff, right? I want to be able to just log in, and I usually, think of it as like, an iPhone map experience, right? I get a new iPhone, like all my information is there. I don't even have to think of it, right? As long as I'm backing an app, right? And so I think that's the kind of customer experience everybody's looking for. Like, okay, I'm constructing something from my end. Can I group projects together, right? Create that seamless customer experience. To me, it's don't give the opportunity for the customer to think through, oh, where am I going to get this? It's already there, right? And it's already there based on how we've created that element of seamless communication, but also, create that you need talent. And to do that, you have to have a change element of it within an organization.
Totally. Talent is scarce, especially, conversational AI is such a new world and new technology, and people are still learning about it. So definitely there's, talent is one such thing. Now, going back to Sylvain, now, there's retailers out there and they're trying to build their conversational experiences. So when they are interacting with the conversational designers, what kind of skill sets do they need to have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this is going back a bit to what Jean-Leah was saying, but talent is the number one problem, I think, to building great AI agents. And the answer to this is really different than what it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, if you wanted to get something off the ground that worked that worked well, you needed an army of data scientists, right? You needed to fine tune those tasks, and there were very little tooling available. Today, we found it's the complete opposite, right? By the time that we found that if your company is leveraging like a large AI team, by the time that they're done fine-tuning BERT, which is like 2 years, to 2 years old, the market will be there, at a completely different level. And so the baseline, like the progress you can make by having your internal team and fine-tuning and figuring out all the different tasks that you have to assemble by your own, is actually longer than what you'll get from just a baseline improvement in the conversational AI market. So we found that having a solution that kind of abstract the NLP or the data science part of it really helps. And so what's going to be even more important going forward is the ability for, and that still doesn't really exist, but conversational designers, right? So we need to somehow create that craft, which is what Jayesh was saying, right? Like the craftsmanship is a big part of what makes a good interaction. So we need more developers or SMEs to actually develop conversational design skills. So you need developers, you need SMEs, and you need that new skill to be created.
Thank you. So this is all great. You have you need. I mean, it's like a combination of things. You need the skill sets. You have the technology, and technology is advancing, and APIs, and all of those things. So Jayesh, this question is for you. What does a successful implementation looks like? When we are designing conversational experiences.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great question, because I think gives me the opportunity to recap pretty much everything that we've been talking about here. And overall, I think I'm going to go back to what I said. Think of it like a true implementation that you're trying to put in front of your customers. And there is a create time semantics, which is how do you design dialogues? How do you abstract out the APIs that perform the task? How do you curate your knowledge sources that are going to inform the bot on how to respond to your customers for informational requests? And having built that and put that into production and having customers use it, there is a part 2 that often gets overlooked, which is how do you keep the bot updated? How do you look at update semantics, because intents change over time. How people talk about the same stuff changes over time. New intents emerge all the time. New products get added to the catalog all the time. And one of the things we tell our large customers is that team that created the bot for you, make sure that doesn't get disbanded. Make sure that at least a small set of people are continually looking at the bot and keeping it updated. And one of the things we have in our product portfolio is sort of a training game. Like we've sort of gamified this approach of making updates easier. And I think that's a really, really big learning lesson for large enterprise customers, which is this is not a one and done sort of thing. You're going to have to care for this. You're going to have to have new intents be pulled in. So I'll kind of stop there. So.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes remaining, but I have a question from the audience, and any one of you can answer that. How big of a role does ethics and explainability play within this? We've spoken about data, we've spoken about experiences and so many things, but then again, ethics and explainability is equally important, especially with AI and training the data and stuff like that. So open to anyone who's willing to answer this.
I mean, I'm happy to go. Huge role. I think we, from a data perspective, one of the things that we care a lot about is that the training data is not skewed one way or another, and that is a tough battle. And part of that is making sure that the data that you source from various different vendors, from your customers, has that sort of balance. That doesn't result in models that are biased in any way. Hard to do, super important.
Absolutely. But in addition to that, I feel like there's more things, right? When we talk about ethics. So for example, there's so much data we are collecting about the users, right? Are we telling them how we are using that data? That is equally important. Even when you talk about ethics, it's equally important to have, inclusivity. Like, is our data skewed, to your point, right? And is it skewed towards a certain segment, or is it skewed towards a certain kind of region, or things like that is equally important to be considering, yeah, right? But explainability in the AI, I mean, personally, I feel like everything we are doing is based on users' data, and they have the full right to know what's happening. So I feel like everything needs to be explainable, like this data is being used like this, or this is what we are doing with our your data and things like that. So I feel like it's a very, very important aspect as we start to think about conversational AIs, right?
Totally. Trust and transparency. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So we have 1 minute remaining. So any last thoughts from you guys?
I mean, I think for me, my last thoughts would be like, conversational AI is, still evolving, and we're still understanding, how we can mimic human dialogue, because that's the overall goal. And I think it's a good time to be in this space, because it's exciting. It's you start understanding, how can I serve my customers better, right? And of course we see talent evolving and new skills evolving, and I'm sure all of you are at the forefront of thinking about, how do I even upskill, my team or my organization or even the whole company in these areas like conversational design, So I think it's a good time to even be having this dialogue. So thank you to the Rework team and everybody in this panel for, at least offering some insights.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting you all today and having this conversation.